Hello brothers and sisters, and welcome to this video. It's been a while since I've made a video. It's now Sunday the 8th of December and it's 6 p.m. in the UK, and I hope you've had a blessed weekend, and I hope that you have been watching because there's plenty to watch. And I haven't made a video because this is really what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for them to come to the place where they're going to announce this third election, and I've been watching the shenanigans which have been going on between Gantz and Netanyahu, and of course we see all the political turmoil which is happening in this world pretty much everywhere, in every country. Each country has its own set of problems, but obviously we're primarily focused on Israel and America, and to a certain extent I've watched the UK as well, but everywhere, even from where I'm originally from, South Africa, there's chaos there as well. Hong Kong, Lebanon, Egypt, Bolivia, Chile, France, Barcelona, Iraq and Iran have all experienced riots or protests, and the riots and protests are happening pretty much all over the world. Everything is starting to bubble up as things get more tough, and the squeeze is put on people more, and the closer we come, the more chaotic it is. I'll also just point out that you'll notice that the majority of these riots actually started to happen when the Great March of Return, which is the Palestinians started to riot at the borders of Israel. So a lot of people say that Israel is like a microcosm of the world. What happens in Israel is going to happen in the world. And when those riots started, the Great March of Return, I think it was 2018 on Passover, that's when all the riots began to happen successively around the world. So it's incredible to see that, you know, we have had so many riots in so many different places, and of course there's always been protests and riots in history, but not as many and as frequently as we have seen. And I noticed that these riots happened after the Great March of Return began, which was the Palestinians rioting at the borders of Israel. So if Israel is like a microcosm of the world, then you know, that's an interesting take on things to see. That's when it started, and that's when all these riots began to happen. But the time is coming when there will be no more riots, because when the judgment of God begins, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be absolute chaos, and judgment begins at the house of God. And Israel's house was left to them desolate, because they knew not the time of their visitation, and that which was done before will be done again. And I believe that same thing is going to happen with the church. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I shall come upon thee as a thief in the night, and you will not know what hour I will come upon you. So we need to be watching, we need to be waiting, we need to be ready, we need to be understanding the times that we are living in. And of course we need to occupy, and this is something that I find difficult to do, is to occupy and to carry on, you know, and understand that we have to carry on, because obviously at the end it's going to be the most difficult. It's going to be the most difficult to occupy at the end, because, you know, as you see that day approaching, encourage one another, but then you've got to occupy in the world and continue on with your life and your job and your work, and all those things are certainly difficult to do when we see this day encroaching and coming nearer and nearer, and the complete unawareness of those that are around us, and the inability to approach them as well. It's very difficult. People are spiritually in a place where they don't want to hear about God, and their whole face changes when you start to talk to them about the word. Some are receptive, and some are not receptive, and in fact, some get very upset when you do. So, anyways, I've got a couple of things that I wanted to discuss and that I've been thinking about over the last few weeks, where I haven't made any updates because I wanted to just watch what's happening, and I'm sure you guys are watching, and you are aware as we should be. So Likud, blue and white, spar over election dates, and Benny Gantz and Netanyahu now, they can't form this government. They can't form a government. Neither of them can. And Netanyahu has had these, he's now been indicted on the 3 corruption charges. And I find it absolutely fascinating how Netanyahu and his political career is almost synchronized in parallel with Donald Trump's political career. And the things that are going on in America and the similar things that are going on in Israel are fascinating to watch. So we have Donald Trump, obviously the impeachment process is going on. And the very day that the impeachment process began was the day that the dictator Erdogan was invited into the White House. So I found it very interesting that while Donald Trump was entertaining Erdogan, who is an Israel hater and a dictator who brutalizes his people, and he's one of the wicked leaders of the world who should not be given he shouldn't be given the honor and the privilege of setting foot in, let alone America, but in the White House is. So I found it interesting that the day that happened was the very day that the impeachment proceedings began against Donald Trump, and the dividing of the land of Israel and the hatred of Israel by somebody like Erdogan, and he despises Netanyahu and he despises the Jewish people. And the day that happens, you see that the division of the land of America is happening by means of the media, and the media and the hatred that is in that, or that was in the impeachment proceedings, and the hatred that is continuing in this impeachment proceeding is palpable, and it is you can cut the air with a knife, and you can see the hatred between Democrat and Republican. And this kind of division and this projection of this hatred is going to be having an impact on the very people themselves and the nation themselves. And Jesus said, "A kingdom divided cannot stand." Okay, and a house divided it will fall. So, we are not a part of this world. I totally understand that the majority of Christian viewers will associate and identify with Republican, but the Democrats and the policies that they push forward are totally demonic. I totally understand that, but the Republicans are certainly not righteous. Okay, so if you had to identify with one of them, obviously it's going to be Republican, but of the lesser of two evils, I would choose neither. And we are not a part of this world, and I think it's important not to be a player in the hatred which is going on. In Job, it says that the deceiver and the deceived are his. So Democrat and Republican belong to God, and we shouldn't be hating. Certainly hate the evil, hate the policies, but don't hate the people, and don't. I would not. I wouldn't participate in. It's just there's so much mockery and spite and hatred for the Democrats that I can see, which people are posting on social media. And I'll just point out that the Bible says that that mockery is foolishness, and to participate in mockery is to benefit nobody, but to feel a sense of gratitude at the expense of someone else. So, anyways, I digress. So here we go. They are now saying they're talking about a March the 2nd or the March the 16th third election. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to wait for this was because I was wondering about going back to the Kaduri prophecy. And the Kaduri prophecy, as you know, was surrounding the elections, and Kaduri's Kaduri's prophecy, which was written a long time ago, spoke about Rosh Hashanah. And now we made an assumption that it was the Rosh Hashanah, which is the civil Rosh Hashanah, and not the religious Rosh Hashanah, which is the first of Nisan, and it could potentially be pointing to Rosh Hashanah, the biblical Rosh Hashanah, which obviously God instituted after the Exodus, and He said that this is the head of the year, which was the first of Nisan. Now, the first of Nisan is the 26th of March next year. And I was waiting to see if the elections were going to happen before Passover. I was pretty convinced that they were, and now this is confirmation that they are actually going to have this election before the Passover and before Rosh Hashanah, which is on March the 26th. So this gives us a perfect situation for Kaduri's prophecy potentially being applied not to the Rosh Hashanah of the civil calendar, but to the Rosh Hashanah of the biblical calendar, which is the first of Nisan. Okay, so as third elections loom, Netanyahu and Gantz vow to defeat each other, and we will find out on the 11th when these elections, these third elections, are going to happen, because they pretty much made a decision that they're not going to be able to form this government. So I think that we may never see another government being formed in Israel. That's what all this is pointing to, is that is God giving us a sign? The Bible tells us that we should not be foolish of Israel and the part that Israel had to play. God has told His story through the nation of Israel. All prophecy was written from the perspective of Israel by Jews in Israel, and so now that Israel is back after 2,000 years, and not only the people have been brought back to their land, but their language was returned. There was no Hebrew being spoken en masse. Now it's being spoken by millions of people. So God not only brought the Jews back to their land and brought the language back, but he's telling His story through the Jewish people. So, and the fact that this has happened, and there is a stalemate. And it really is a stalemate. They can't get out of this. No matter how much they try and shift and change, they can't get out of this. And God is in control. God is the only one who can bring the plans of man to naught. Okay, and He can keep this in limbo like this for as long as He chooses. And that is what's happening. So going back to the Kaduri prophecy, and what it actually says was that when Kaduri said that, here we go, it says, just referring to this again, it says, on the eve of the fifth cycle of 1,000 years, the year is 5780. Okay, that's the civil new year has just gone, is a year of fixing. There will be no government in Israel for an extended period, and the different camps will fight and argue a great deal without any conclusion this way or the other. Then on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Okay, now this edition is obviously, this is what Breaking Israel News put this in there, which they said the Jewish New Year, which will be this next Sunday evening. But Rosh Hashanah, as far as God is concerned, is the first of Nisan. He told us that date's changing after the Exodus, but they have kept it the civil Rosh Hashanah as Tishri. The side of holiness will battle the side of darkness in heaven until God himself and his hosts will decide the issue. So as Rosh Hashanah went just previously, I thought to myself, okay, well, maybe this third election's coming and it's going to happen just before the Passover, okay, which is obviously the 14th of Nisan, and before the Rosh Hashanah, the biblical head of the year, which is the 1st of Nisan. So the 1st of Nisan, as I mentioned, is the 26th of March, and the Passover will be shortly after that. So that's kind of what I'm watching, and I am obviously waiting to see if that's the case. And we will obviously see things getting more and more chaotic. We just saw on Friday, it was Thursday or Friday, the Democrats have voted in the House for a two-state solution, and I saw that the media was saying that this is a rebuke to Trump and everything that he's done for Israel, and obviously the recognition of Jerusalem and the Golan Heights and everything that he has done, and saying that or he's going to recognize the settlements for they're not going to be considered illegal as far as America is concerned. Okay, and then the Democrats voted for this two-state solution, and the media have portrayed this as being a rebuke to Trump. But I noticed that there was no response from the White House with regards to this two-state solution vote in the House. There has been no response or disagreement from the White House about this voting for a two-state solution. So the conclusion that I draw from that is that there is a two-state solution in the peace deal of the century, and that is going to recognize a Palestinian state, and that is the peace deal of the century, which will divide the land of Israel. And that has been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed ad nauseum. And the very means by which it has been delayed is also an indication that this is being kept in limbo by God, right? So he's giving us more time, and he is merciful and gracious in doing that. So we shall see. We're going to wait and see until I think that everything's going to kick off around March, April time next year, which is my personal favorite feast for the rapture is Passover. I've made that clear for a couple of years now, and I've got the videos that cover everything to do with a Passover rapture and how many prophecies were fulfilled on Passover. So the fact that God and the prophecies which were fulfilled in the Bible, he fulfilled them on his feast days, and that is the nature of God. He fulfills things on feast days, and I see absolutely no reason why he cannot or he will not fulfill the rapture of the church on a feast day, and that would be in line with his nature. So when I understand that, the doctrine of imminence and all these kinds of things to say it could happen at any moment, for sure, I get that over the last 2,000 years maybe, but as we come to the end now, I think that the knowledge has been increased, and now we understand how these things worked in the past, the dates that were so specific and accurate and happened at exact times, and all the clues which have come out, which have pointed to specific prophecies in the Bible happening on specific days. There are little drops of honey all over the place, which indicate that the prophecies were fulfilled on feast days, and I've covered those in considering a Passover rapture in the past. So I think that Passover is the best feast for the rapture. It's the only thing in the Bible that says this is that night. Okay, this is when you should make sure that that you should be watching, and so we shall see as we come closer to Passover. Okay, then there is this. There's this article also that was, which was about Kaduri and prophecies which were given, and there's a reference in here about the elections as well, which talks about the gates, and it actually says it talks about Tractate Sanhedrin 78a, but it's not. It's actually 98a, and it says in here that this rabbi, who is an expert in Jewish mysticism, talks about the final redemption is very close, and he based this on a section in the Talmud where it says the disciples of Rabbi Yossi, the son of Kisma, questioned him, asking when the son of David, the Messiah, will appear. Now remember, this is thousands of years old. These writings in the Talmud. Okay, and I know that many Christians will bury their head in the sand. I don't do that. I will take the knowledge as it is and assess it and then put it to you, and you can consider it yourself. I think it's interesting. But it says here, and he answered, I'm afraid you will request a sign from me as well. And they assured him that they would not. And he said to them, when this gate will fall, be rebuilt and fall again, be rebuilt and fall again. That's three, okay? So we've got three elections now. We're coming up to the third one. And before it will be rebuilt for the third time, that's when there's a government, after the third election, they're going to have to try and form the government, okay? The Messiah will appear. So let's say they say on March the 2nd or March the 16th, whenever they have the elections, then one of them win, and one of them has to form a government. It says before it will be rebuilt for the third time. So before the government is formed for the third time, and they have a 3-week period to form the government, the Messiah will appear. So that would mean that around the Nisan Passover period is when that would occur. And also remembering that Venus is up at the Pleiades at that very moment. And I'm going to go through that just now because I know that there have been some things which have been said about that. And I'll just cover that in a while. So this, what he's referring to, it says here Tractate Sanhedrin 78a. That is an error on Breaking Israel News. It is in Tractate Sanhedrin 98a. Okay, and here it says the disciples of Rabbi Yosei Kisma asked him, when will Messiah come? And he said, I fear lest ye demand a sign of me that my answer is correct. They assured him, we will not demand no sign of you. We will demand no sign. So he answered them, when this gate falls down, is rebuilt, falls again, and is again rebuilt, and then falls a third time. This is in the Talmud, which was written thousands of years ago. Okay, before it can be rebuilt, the son of David will come. Here's a prophet. This is a prophecy. They said to him, Master, give us a sign. Okay, and then he said, you told me you weren't going to ask me for a sign. And then it talks about the waters turning to blood, and we know that they certainly do that in the book of Revelation. So I wanted to show you guys that and just let you guys know that I'm watching this, and I still haven't completely discounted or discredited Kaduri's prophecy, because that could have been Nisan and not Tishri. Right. I'm aware that there has been some things that have been said about Venus not totally entering into the Pleiades until 2028 or 2036. But I just want to point out to you that that Venus has taken hundreds of years to get up there. And the fact that Venus is up there, okay, and it hasn't always been up there, it's worked its way up. And the last time it was near the Pleiades was in 2012, and that was before the blood moons, and that was before homosexual marriage, and that the homosexual marriage had become widespread in 2014 to 2015. That's when both America and the United Kingdom approved homosexual marriage. And you'll note that also that the fact that the whole of what was Western Christendom pretty much accepted homosexual marriage within within 2 years shows you that God is making a short work of this. He's bringing it to a close, and he's doing it very, very quickly. It's not like the UK approved homosexual marriage and then 10 years later the US, or vice versa. No, this has happened very, very quickly all across Western Christendom. This has occurred. So Venus being in the Pleiades next year is a sign in the heavens. Make no mistake about that. I made this video about Venus in the Pleiades before the Revelation chapter 12 sign. Also, the Revelation chapter 12 sign was on 9/23/2017. So it was on the 23rd of September 2017. And if you add 923 days, that's 923 to the 23rd of September 2017, that comes up to April the 3rd and the 4th, which is when Venus is in the Pleiades. Okay, and the location of Venus is, I grant you, slightly beneath the Pleiades, or slightly beneath the lowest of the 7 stars, but it says that he has the stars in his right hand. Okay, so where would Venus be? Would it be beneath the Pleiades, or would it be there? No, it's more likely to be there. Okay, so, and guys, I don't want to be pedantic about this, but Venus going into the Pleiades is Venus is there. Jesus says, "I'm the bright and morning star," and the Pleiades is the seven. They call it the 7 sisters, but it's, that's obviously folklore and mythology. It's the representation of the church. Now, Jesus said that before this generation has passed, everything in the book of Matthew chapter 24 will be fulfilled. All these things will be fulfilled. That's the Antichrist, the abomination of desolation. All these things will be fulfilled before the end of a generation. And Psalm 90 verses 10 says, "A number of a man's year is 70, which is 70. And if by reason of strength they be 80, that's 80." So 70 to 80 years, but they're spent in misery, those last ones. So Venus entering into the Pleiades, or Venus being right at the Pleiades, if it has to be an issue of semantics, Venus is at the Pleiades in 2020, and right at that date, which is again exactly the same number of days from the birth date of Christ until the destruction of the temple, to the birth date of Israel being restored, to Venus entering the Pleiades. And Venus is in the Pleiades 923 days after 923. So I'm just pointing it out that it's there, and I think it's pretty profound. And the day star is arising in my heart, and I hope it is arising in yours too. And we shall see. We've seen catastrophic fires in Australia, absolutely unbelievable. They reckon right now there's a fire that is too big to put out, heading towards Sydney, and Sydney has been doused in smoke for quite some time now, and there have been catastrophic weather conditions which continue to happen, earthquakes and storms and floods, and it's coming, guys. It's coming closer and closer, and we see the things that are happening with the American justice system at the moment. I suppose you could call it, or the lack of justice, but the things that are going on with Donald Trump, and the trouble which is coming. The trouble which is coming. I've said that you can call it a hoax, and you can call it a sham, and you can call it what you like, but it's going to become serious. It's going to get to a point where it's no longer something that can be mocked and just ridiculed and ignored. There are procedures, and there are things exist in the American justice system to push these things forward. And what is it going to do? It's going to come to a stage, what is the Constitution actually going to be destroyed in this process. What's actually going to happen is what's going to happen between the White House and Congress and the Senate and all these kinds of things. But there's trouble coming. There's big trouble. There's big trouble coming. So keep looking up. Keep reading the Word of God, and just know that He's coming, and nothing can stop what is about to happen. The rapture of the church is coming, and a new world is coming, a new creation is coming. So the things that we do in this world, and we have to occupy, of course, but remember that they are temporary, and just make sure that you are close to the Lord and ready and waiting and watching, guys. And that's all I can say. We've waited for so long. We continue to wait, but everything is like building up and building up and building up to this crescendo of something. There's a point in time where God, he cuts it off, and He judges the world. He removes the wicked, and that is really coming. That's not just a story. It's not a fiction, and it's in the Word of God, and the Word of God has been there for 2,000 years. People have read that Word, and they have desired. Men have desired this time, to see this time, to be here at this very moment that we are alive. And despite the fact that there are terrible things which are happening in this world, there are things which make it very difficult to live here and to see a future here. I mean, I was just talking to my wife about having kids in this world, and the things that are happening in this world. And I don't think in history there's ever been a time where two people like me and my wife have really we have great fear of bringing a child into this world. And of course, I don't mean fear as in I mean like concern that the moment that child is born, the government and the medical industry, backed by the government, want to poison your child with vaccines and all these kinds of things. And then if they get past that stage, the education system also, again, backed by the government, want to educate your child that that we come from monkeys. And next year in the United Kingdom, it is going to be across the board, across the educational board, all government schools, which is pretty much all schools in the United Kingdom, will be teaching same-sex relationships to little kids. So this is coming next year, guys. This is what's happening next year, and God is not going to stand for that, right? He's going to cut it short. He's going to stop all of this. He's going to stop it. He's not going to allow little children to be brainwashed and indoctrinated into hell. So that's happening in the UK next year, and it's sad. I don't think in the history of mankind there's ever been a time when parents are, and my wife and I say this. I'll be honest with you, that we don't want to bring children into this world. So I'm looking forward to getting out of here. Call me an escapist. I'm looking forward to escaping. I'm looking forward to the world which is to come, not this one. I don't want to be a part of this one anymore.